Stephen Hojo here, welcome. In this video, I'll be going over a few points that could affect the duration of a flight training. Now, as we all know that we always have a planned schedule. For example, if you're coming from Nigeria to the United States, you probably have a plan to spend maybe a year, get your commercial ratings, and probably go back home and start working. But I have to tell you that that doesn't always work out like that. Why? Because the school will always have a plan for you, but then the reality sets in. And these are the things I'll be talking about. Like the saying goes, you can force a horse to the river, but you cannot force the horse to drink from the river. Same concept. If you think about it, you can always have a lot of information given to you by an instructor when you start your training, especially when you're new. But the truth is you have to be able to accept your instructor and also listen to what your instructor is telling you in order for you to learn. It's one of the things that we learn as an instructor when we start teaching new students. You first of all want to understand the kind of student and the type of learning style they prefer. And then you always want to take it to the next level by making sure that you can actually be accepted by the student. Now, obviously, every instructor can always change their styles, but you as a student must be ready to also dance with him. Now, I'm going to give you a good example. There are times when you have students that are just very critical of every instructor because of the way the instructor looks, because of the color of their skin, because of the orientation, or whatever the factors may be. You as a student must realize that your instructor is there to teach you and it has a job to be done. And you as a student must be ready to receive the instruction that is being given. And that leads to my second point. You have to be prepared. You have to be prepared to learn. You have to understand that you have to be prepared for every lesson and show up prepared and make sure that you have done a study ahead of time of what the subject is. You have to understand that flight training is something that is new to you, especially if you have no family members or friends that are in the aviation industry. So you probably have nothing to fall back on in terms of the information or the education you had in your past. A lot of us who always come from different backgrounds, like I did. I studied computer science. I had no aviation background at all. And when I came here, learning all these theories and learning the practical part of it were all new to me. So you have to sometimes be ready in terms of studying ahead, knowing what to expect, so that when you show up for your lessons, whether the ground lessons or the flight lessons, you have something to relate to. And that will help and speed up your learning as well. The third point I have for you is the type of instructor you have. I have to be honest with you. Having a good instructor definitely helps. Now, the truth is every instructor has, dedicated their time, money, and effort to become a CFI. But the honest fact is that not all instructors are out there to really help teach. Not a lot of people like teaching. Some people are just instructors because they want to get the hours. That is the truth, and it's the reality. So as a student, you need to be able to understand the type of instructor you have and see what their motives are. You will notice right from the start if you have an instructor that is willing to teach or an instructor that is just willing to get the hours. So keep that in mind. Well, the next one I have for you is the flight school that you attend. I have to be honest with you, not all flight schools are designed to foster learning. In terms of some flight schools are there just to make the money. So you have to be very cautious of that and think about it. Because if your flight school is not designed to really, give that quality education, you may struggle and end up taking you forever to finish your training. That is even if you don't run out of money. Also, just to touch on the flight school, you also have to remember that the flight school provides the airplanes you use or the airports that you train at. So these conditions or these factors will always determine how well you can move through your training quickly. Give you an example. If you have a flight school that has maybe just 2 airplanes or 3 airplanes and you have like a bunch of other students trying to train, guess what? Your airplanes, the equipment that you need to train is tied up most of the time, which means your training is going to be very slow. All right, the next point I have for you is the weather. All right, weather is like they say, the mother nature. So you have to understand that weather will always play a factor in what affects the duration of your training. Give you a good example. If you're in a place where you have a lot of thunderstorms during the day or during the afternoons, you may run into issues flying, which means, well, you're probably grounded for a while until the weather gets better. And if you're in a place that snows a lot, well, when it's snowing, you probably cannot fly as well because your airplane is not equipped to fly in icing conditions. These factors will definitely affect your flight training, so keep that in mind. My next point on this video is the maintenance of the airplane. Well, as we all know, safety is very important in the aviation industry and the airplane has to be top notch. So the duty of the flight school is to make sure that their instructors are safe, the airplanes are safe, and their students are safe. which means the airplane has to be maintained properly. And that could always lead to delays in your training. Why? Because sometimes you show up on an airplane and something is broken. Well, that thing might need to be fixed right away, and if it's required, then your airplane is grounded, which means you cannot fly, and that means more delays. And the last but not the least is money. You have to have your finances in place. The truth is that flight training is expensive, like you all know, and the fact that if you do not have consistent supply of funds, you will be grounded, which means your training will take longer. Unfortunately, this is twofold. Why? Because when you're grounded, you start to lose skills from your training, because remember, you're still learning to fly. So if you're grounded for a while, you end up losing those skills, and all those flights that you had in the past are probably just past memories, which means when you go back to flying and doing those trainings and doing those stalls and steep turns and chandelles or lazy eights or whatever maneuvers you may be practicing, all these maneuvers are something of just faded memories, which means you end up spending more money to get back to speed. And that's why this funds is very important. This fact of making sure you have your funds in place, because once you have your funds in place, you can speed through your training, be proficient, and get it through your training in record time. So in conclusion, with all these points I've mentioned to you, I urge you to make sure that you consider them and have a good understanding as to how it affects you or how it could affect you. So that way you have a solid understanding of what you're getting into and how you plan to navigate each of these factors. Well, I hope you found some value in this video, and as always, if you find value in it, please consider liking the video, consider sharing with someone that might find value in it, and if you have questions, you can always hit me on Facebook or leave your comment in the comment section below, and I will try to respond to them as soon as I can. Thank you, and I'll see you in my next video.